Good morning, Proximity Church. Pastor Javi here. So grateful and so thankful that you joined us this morning. I get to introduce our guest speakers for today. But before I do so, I want to remind you that next week we will have Father's Day service. I know Lewis probably just said it, but we want to celebrate all the dads. So if you have a dad, which I know you do, bring them on down to Proximity Church next week. We have some great things planned for them. With that said, it is my pleasure this morning to introduce one of my very best friends, and I'm so sorry that I can't be there today because I'm so looking forward to hearing him. One of my very best friends again, and somebody that you will glean a lot from. Please help me welcome one of my very best friends, Larry French.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? You hear me okay? Mic check. Let me get this situated for a minute. Man, I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys a few pre-game jitters, but you guys made me feel so welcome coming in, talking about you was excited about this morning and so on and so forth. No, I'm really appreciative to Pastor Javi. As he said, we've been friends for quite a while. And anytime you leave your church, I know it can be a little bit of nerve-wracking. So he probably, is thinking about you guys this morning. And I appreciate you guys inviting me into, hopefully, into your inner conversation a little bit. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I wanted to say, is that don't let anybody ever discourage you from coming to church. And that's important for me. For some reason this morning that kind of hit me. I think it hit me for a couple of reasons. One is because of the nature of what we're going to be talking about this morning. But the other one is because coming to church is actually sort of a spiritual discipline. And in a day and age where people eschew discipline, I think it is very important that you actually celebrate the fact that you'll get up on a Sunday morning in spite of what's going on sometimes, and you'll take the time to come to church. It's not just something that you do because you don't have anything better to do. Sometimes we do what we do because it is a discipline. So getting together, coming together, you could be, laying in the bed, flipping through the television screen. You could be doing something else. You could be texting. You could be on Facebook. But the fact that you decided to get up and come to church this morning, it says something. And this is spiritual discipline. It's actually sort of exercising. I mean, you don't look at somebody crazy who's saying they're getting ready to go to the gym. Why would you look at somebody crazy who says they're getting ready to go to church? So coming to church and being together is a discipline. We all have something to offer. We all bring something to the table. Sometimes we're in need, but sometimes the reason that I come isn't because I feel like it, and it isn't always because I am, terribly excited, although I usually am terribly excited to see you guys. But sometimes I feel good through the years that I have taken the time to come, not because I'm a great person or because I look down on other people who don't come, but because of the fact that it has been a discipline for me. And I think that it should be something that is celebrated. I want to talk about another discipline this morning because I want to talk from the topic of detox. I want to talk about detox. But in order to get to talking about detox, I cannot go over the bridge too quickly that leads to our discussion on detox, which will be brief. I don't plan on being very long this morning, but I hope to give you guys a couple of things to think about so that when you leave here even, it gives you some food for thought, maybe some discussion on the way home, maybe some breakfast, lunch, dinner time discussion, or just some reflective thought, some introspection. But I kind of want to talk about one of the things that spiritual disciplines aim to do is that they aim to sort of create a sense of they're inward. And in a world that is so outward and outward in terms of its celebration, so there's so much stimulus, so much stimuli that comes from the outside. We're constantly looking to be titillated. We're looking to be scintillated. When you start talking about an inward life, sometimes people, they don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily jive with them because they almost don't know what you're talking about. I think that sometimes the lack of spiritual life is why, some people say, well, I hate religion. I hate religion, the new thing sort of is, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Well, here's the thing. If you hate religion, then be spiritual. Outward religion is only as necessary as it is when inward religion dies. If I lived a spiritual life, if I inhabited what the church is supposed to represent, I wouldn't have to lean on outward edifices or outward things or outward celebrations in order to have some sort of religious life. The reason some people are so inwardly malnourished, so inwardly they're out searching for something that perhaps should be found in here, the Christ in you, the hope of glory. They're searching outside when perhaps sometimes we should be sitting still. We should be cultivating a sense of emptiness, creating a space inside. One of the reasons I'm not on Facebook a lot, I have a page. I have a phone. I don't check it very much except to see if my wife is texting me about one of the boys or something like that. Sometimes I jokingly tell people it's because I'm content. I have a few friends, fortunately, that put up with me and that have been patient with me and that I have had the grace of getting to know through the years. And I have a wonderful wife, and I get to interact with people like you sometimes, and I get to laugh and so on and so forth. But after that, I don't need somebody's picture about their breakfast, and I don't need to see what you're wearing today. I just don't. I'm happy. Okay. So creating space, and one of the words I like to use, and I don't want it to be misunderstood, but one of the words I like to use this morning is emptiness. Emptiness. The fact that we need to cultivate a sense of emptiness, and let me explain that a little bit. I think I like maybe to use the word space because it seems to it would need less explanation. But let me put it this way. Last week I heard that Pastor Travis, I'm gonna call him Pastor. I heard that Travis shared, because I asked to try to get some context. I said, what did you talk about? What did you guys talk about last week? How was church? And I heard, for those of you guys who were here, forgive me if I don't get it all right, but I asked a couple of people and they told me it was about the body and this analogy about the knee. By the way, Travis, I know I could cross you over now. I could do it to you now. I know that we can do it. But one of the things that I heard him talk about, was he talked about, the importance of the body and the fact that we all belong. I got the text from the church, about being belong. And even though I was out of town in Tulsa working, I still get the text. And so I was kind of excited about that. Like, man, that's cool. It's really important to hear that sometimes. And somebody told me, he said something about the knee and so on and so forth, how all the parts fit together. And so I started reflecting about that a little bit as I was preparing this morning, and I thought about it for myself, and I said, that's really cool to be present, like we talked about coming to church this morning, and to be, sort of a part of the body and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, what part would I be? I like to beat my chest a little bit, so I like to think maybe I'm an eye or something, that's important. I ain't gonna pretend I'm humble. I like to think, but my wife, if I tried to, my wife would tell you he's not. He's not. But I thought, maybe I would be a knee, as a basketball player. But here's the thing: is I was thinking about the part, and I thought about, if I were a knee, I thought my concern is that a lot of times, sometimes what I think that I am is that I would be a bum knee. And that's sometimes a bum knee. Here's the issue with that. It's like, okay, I'm present, and I am the knee, and I'm a part of the body. But what happens when a part of the body is present, but the part of the body isn't working. What happens when I'm there, but I'm really not there? I have this need. Sometimes that's one of the worst things, is to have something present, but have something or dysfunctional, or have something that's there that's not really doing anything, because you almost feel like it's in the way. When I used to work and counsel with young kids, and sometimes they would get a kick out of me because I would ask them about work, and they had all this extra energy sometimes, and I would talk about using your energy constructively. And sometimes we'd go in a room, or I'd buy them pizza or something, and I'd tell them, you need to clean up after yourself. You can't just leave pizza boxes laying around. You shouldn't leave your room all messy and toe up, although I know you do. You should make yourself useful sometimes. Stop just sucking up all the air in the room. I mean, make yourself useful. Do something. All right. I mean, just at least, some people say, well, what can I do for you? I like to say, well, find a way that you lean in and go that direction and just pick up something. Okay. Make yourself useful. So I thought, and I said, why would I say that I was a bum knee? And I feel like sometimes, and that's why that word would come to mind, the word emptiness. Because what would happen is I started to think that sometimes the reason that I am not functional as that knee is because I have not cultivated a sense of emptiness. I haven't cultivated a sense of space. Okay, let me use an analogy. You guys may have heard something like this or seen something before, but I just wanted to use an analogy because Travis is good at it, and I thought I'd try to top him. So sometimes it's not the raw material that's important. Here I have, what's the spoon made out of? Some kind of metal. Stainless steel, something like that. So sometimes it's not the raw material that is important as much as it is the space around or in the raw material. Let me explain. The thing that makes this utensil useful is its curvature that creates space so that something can be put in this. We live in a culture that celebrates material, okay? But what about the space? What about the inwardness? What about having a place for something to happen? All right, and I like to put it this way, or show it this way. If I have, let's say, 2 spoons, let's say this was a relationship, if the spoon is not full, there's space for something to happen. Or let's say you have a relationship and you have 2 spoons, it's the space in between the spoons that allows for things. Okay? It allows for growth. Or let's say it allows for conversation. Let's say it allows for perhaps vulnerability. Contrast it with if you have 2 people that like to suck up all the air in the room. It's funny, but this is what happens. This is one of the reasons people have to go to counseling. There's no space. There's no space. You got 2 people like this. This is why they're not getting along. This is why there's no compromises. This is why you have 2 people with strong personalities running into each other, because there's no cultivation of space. One of the things that I like to say is, in this space is where I'm sorry occurs. In this space is where I think that there might need to be some changes here occurs. In this space is where there is actual real humility, not feigned humility, not false humility, but saying, you know what, maybe I need to rethink that, honey. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe it doesn't matter who's right. Maybe it just matters that we both grow from this. Maybe it matters that we both work on this and overcome this. Maybe this is part of our evolution. But if there is no space, there's no evolution. There's just pig-headedness. And we have a culture sometimes of people who are just taking up air in the room, taking up space, but not functional because there is no space. They don't allow for space. Same thing with a fork. You notice that there's spaces in between the metal. Part of what makes a fork a fork. It would not be useful if you took it, would not be as useful if you took it and you filled in the spaces. I think, church, what I'm trying to suggest to you, beloved, is that there are too many things in the spaces. Too many things in the spaces. There's not enough room. And I don't know if it's because we're too busy. I don't know if it's because we've become so accustomed to culture where we're moving too fast. There's not even enough space for margin. Sometimes I wonder if there's any difference between me and the world because I'm living from month to month because I have to have the same house and the same car, and I don't have enough simplicity, and so it creates stress in the home, and so I'm irritable with my wife. I'm not spending enough time with my children because I'm emotionally taxed. Sometimes I just think that there's not enough space, and I'm living just like everybody else, and I say that I'm supposed to be the light of the world, the salt of the world. I'm supposed to be following the light of the world, but there's just not enough space. I'm distracted. I'm on Facebook because I don't have an inner life. I'm following so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And then I'm coming to church on Sunday, and I appreciate the teaching about following Jesus and following Christ. But come Monday morning, I'm following somebody else on some social media, and I'm wasting my time. 6 hours out of my day is gone when I should be using that doing something that's more profitable for me, something that involves some sort of discipline, some sort of exercise that's actually going to build me up. But there's not enough space. There's not enough space. There's not enough emptiness. There's not enough space. Sorry, I got right to it. I didn't even get to open up my notes. So it's the space that makes us useful, not just the presence. It's the space that makes us useful, not just the presence. And here's the thing. This is important to me. This is not necessarily in my notes, but I feel it necessary. We've lost the ability to be still. And you guys have heard the soapbox many times. Maybe it's even one of your soapboxes where, you talk about the fact that, we're everywhere, and people talk about technology and all that, and we don't, we're not present. You guys have probably heard that soapbox a time or two where you've done that. I can't have lunch with my son or my wife or whatever because the phone's always sitting on the table and so on and so forth. So you guys have heard that soapbox. But one of the things I like to say that I find sometimes deeply troubling, particularly for myself, and then I look out and I see sometimes the same thing, is that we've lost the ability to be able to be still. To be still. And sometimes I wonder why. But I love how the Bible talks about the fact that we are seated in heavenly places with Christ. It says in Isaiah 45, I believe, it says, be still and know that I am God. I think that should ring differently in the day and age that we live in. When people are chasing promotions and chasing the next big thing and the next thing to entertain them, jockeying for positions, jockeying to be the jock, jockeying to be in front of the screen, because, you know, these days it's all about screens and cameras, lights, camera, action. You've been tricked. You've been programmed. You've been hacked. And then you have a God that says, expresses this sentiment: be still and know that I am God. In other words, you don't have to go chasing. You don't have to be so outwardly that you lose yourself. You don't have to chase the world to the extent that you chase the world and you even gain the world. What does it do for a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Our soulishness. I love the story of the American businessman who was in Africa working with some Africans, and he had them moving material from one place to another, and having to move the material from one place to another in order to build something, and one day they weren't working. And he sent his assistant and he said, I need you to tell them to get to work. And he went and told them to get to work, and they were all just kind of standing around, and they kind of looked at him and blinked as if they didn't understand what he was saying. And so finally he asked for one of the guys that was supposed to lead her. He called him over and he said, my boss told me that you guys need to, we need to get to work, and you guys have been standing around now for a couple of days. And the guy looked at him and he said, yeah, I just talked to the guys, and they said, sir, we can't move right now because we've been working so hard and going and going and going. And we're waiting for our souls to catch up to our bodies. We're waiting for our souls to catch up to our bodies. Sometimes I think that I see bodies, but I'm not home. I'm not here. How can Christ be in you, the hope of glory, and there's nobody home? And forgive me, sometimes I say Yeshua. I've gotten so used to it in conversation. I like to call Jesus by the name he was called when he was here, so I say Yeshua. But Yeshua said this, I find this to be interesting. He said, me and my Father, we want to come in and sup with you. But Brother Lewis, I just wonder if he came to sup with me, I just wonder if there would be any space. He said, I stand at the door and knock. And if anybody hears, open up and let them in, that kind of thing. But I just wonder if when he knocked, if anybody would be home. Or if there would be any space. That's just what I wondered. Lost the art of being present. We've lost the art of being present. So he says that you are seated in heavenly places. And I'll just be a few more minutes. But I want to drive this point home. It's not where I was necessarily planning on going, but I want to start to wrap this up this way, because I feel like this is important to drive home. He said that you are seated in heavenly places. Seated. Just sit down. The work is done. The work is done. Just come sit down with me. That's really what grace is all about. It's not, it's that what's already been done is done, and all I'm asking for is your participation in it. That's really what grace is. is joining in the song that's already being sung. It's joining in the dance that is already occurring. Just asking, would you join? I've already worked it out where it's going to be beautiful. I've already worked it out where it's going to work out in the end. Even if it hurts right now. And no, sometimes I won't take the pain away. You know why? I don't have to tell you why. But here's the thing. I told you when you asked for the pain to go away, I did tell you that my grace was sufficient for you. You asked that I take it away a couple of times, but how else would I teach you if I didn't allow your ignorance to have you suffer some, so that you would see the greater weight of your glory on the other end? You suffer, I suffer because of my attachments. Because I have become so acculturated with this world. I participate in it just like everybody else. I don't bring a renewed mind to it. I just jump in. I don't bring anything new to the conversation. I just repeat what's been said. Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. But how can I have a renewed mind when my mental diet is the same as everybody else's? If I eat what everybody else eats, I'm going to look like everybody else. I'm going to suffer from the same health conditions everybody else suffers from. Be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be seated, because that's where you're supposed to be. Brother Lewis, I'm trying to work it out. I've already got it worked out that you have a promotion coming in your job. But when I came to find you to give you the blessing, you weren't sitting down. You had got up and started chasing things, and you had just started chasing what would shine the brightest, and you were trying to be the loudest, and you were trying to dress the best, and you were up doing all this kind of thing. And I just asked that you be seated. In my bosom, I have delights for you. But when I come by, to use an analogy, to give them to you, you're not seated. I've got somebody for you. You're exhausting yourself chasing the wind. That's the reason I told you from the get-go. I told you from the get-go to be seated. I told you from the get-go to rest. I told you from the get-go to simply be like me. I told you from the get-go to seek ye first the kingdom. About to wrap up anyway. You can come up, please. I told you from the get-go to seek ye first the kingdom. And then what? Everything else would what? Everything else would be added. Yes. So, I think what I tried to do this morning, beloved, in trying to share with you, and what I found, did the best that I could to try to express from my heart this burden, is I think that I am trying to make sure that you are as secure as you can be in your identity and in the finished work. But I wanted to be practical. I want us to cultivate a sense of space, a sense of inwardness. I want us to ask those kinds of questions. Because if we learn to be present, and if we learn to keep first things first, I really believe everything else would be added to us, and our lights would shine before men, and they would see our good works. They would see the good works of the body, that they may glorify the Father which is in heaven. It's Matthew 5:16 for those of you guys who need some Bible this morning. So, as Quincy plays, I just want us to take a couple of minutes and sit still for just a couple of minutes. Sometimes I think there's a criticism, I remember we used to make fun of the churches growing up because it didn't seem like it made sense back in the day for these churches that, they didn't allow instruments and they didn't allow drums. I can't remember what we call them churches, if they were holiness, or what the term would be to properly explain what their denomination was. But sometimes, one time I was sitting thinking about it, and I said, I think I got it. I think what they were trying to do was they didn't want any substitutes, because somebody probably intuitively knew that we would try to do things on our own. We would try to conjure up a presence that can only be had when we sit still. Now, but we become too outward, and maybe they went to the extreme. But I want to encourage us to sit still. I want to encourage you to rest. I want to encourage you to cry if it hurts. I want to encourage you to take shelter. I want to encourage you to be seated. I want to encourage you that all things work for the good, for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. I want to encourage you that you're the apple of His eye. I want to encourage you that you're never forgotten. Never forgotten. I want to encourage you that He wants to sup with you. And it's the kind of communion that's so deep that it doesn't need a lot of words. Just another minute. Then I'll have Pastor Lewis come up and pray for us and dismiss us for just another minute. Brother Lewis. Be still. Be still.
Lord, thank you. God, I thank you for using Larry today, Father, to speak to us. God, you are so good. God, I pray that when you come knocking, Father God, that we may be present, that we may be home, and ready to answer that door, Father God, and create that space. God, I pray for peace. I pray for your unconditional love. I pray that you may be patient with us, and that we may continue to let go of the things that keep us from creating that space and that relationship with you and what really matters, Father. Thank you so much for everything that you've been doing in our lives, Lord. And I thank you so much again for just using Larry for that incredible message, Lord. I know that it hit me hard, Father. And you never seem to surprise me, Lord. And I just thank you for what's going to come in this week, Father, that you may be able to give us the opportunity to create that space and to really focus on you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. We got a round of applause for God, please. I'm going to take a seat too, Larry, real quick. All right, guys. So, man, thank you for coming. If has anyone a visitor here? Anyone? No? It's okay. We're going to go chill over there. If you guys want to hang out with me, I'm at that table. We got some good snacks over there. And then, yes, and also the giving station, again, Tony's going to be there. So if you guys want to give your offering, you can. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we will see you for Father's Day.